We are going to talk about the seer today, the INFJ, and they are the various personality type out there. And if you heard the expression or people saying, "I can see through your soul," this applies to this personality type. INFJs are really those people that have a sense or seeing through your soul. And so if you hear that somewhere and the person can recognize that, is probably definitely an intuitive person, but they might as well be INFJs. And INFJ's conscious structure is very interesting, and like I said, there are the fewest of personality type, and so it could be experienced as mystic. And in the old day, they probably would burn a lot of INFJs as witches and so on, because they have this mysticism about them, and it has to do with they're using the first conscious function, the most developed function of their in their consciousness is foreseeing, and foreseeing is about knowing the future and seeing what will come. And so when INFJ really is, their orientation is always towards the future. And when they have this coupled with harmonizing is about understanding the social dynamic, understand the social values and the culture and so on. It has this effect on INFJ of wanting to develop the humankind, and they want to develop people, and they often do this either in individual basis or in other bases, like let's say Mahatma Gandhi would probably be typed as INFJ, have this forward-looking vision to change everyone. And this has to do with foreseeing creates a vision. It creates a image of what they want the future to be. And they use harmonizing, obviously, which is about social dynamic, as I said. So they use people to get their vision done. But often what is seen with INFJ is that they like to develop individuals. So they might be very good at counseling people or teaching. And that's actually an occupation that will interest them. Even priesthood as well. Some becomes priest and so on. And Carl Jung, he said this in one of his books, is that if we didn't have foreseeing consciousness, we wouldn't have any profit. And why I say this? Why he says this? Because foreseeing is really about, like I said, seeing the future. And so the INFJ has this ability, like people often like don't get to understand, like how did they able to see, like how did they know what was going on and so on. It has to do with INFJ because they use the foreseeing function. The foreseeing function is not interested in what is being presented. So in other words, if we have a car, for example, and if we have a car and a sensing person will see, oh, there's a red car, there's a blue car, there's a black car, and so on. But INFJ, when they see a car, they see what car represents, what is the meaning behind the car. And so they think in symbols. That's what we mean by INFJ think symbolically, is that they read the meaning behind things. And what they said is that when they see a car, they see really what the car represents. Perhaps it represents power. Perhaps it represents a different life stage, and so on. So they read into situation. They always ask themselves, what does this mean? What is this behavior mean? What is this group gathering mean? What is more to it? So they always read behind what is being presented. So in one of the book called Building Blocks of Personality, and they have some description of how introverted intuition works. The foreseeing function is that it sees behind the curtain. INFJ, when they meet a person, like I said, it's like they see a person's soul. They understand the person without even having talked much with them and so on. They have this a sense of knowing the person, knowing what this person is about. Is this person good? Is this person bad? Do I like this person? And so on. And they also can uh, have an image of what this person would mean in the future and so on. So INFJs, their one of their least conscious function is experiencing. You see, this represents how much conscious awareness they have of all function. So foreseeing and harmonizing comes very natural for them. So developing people, understanding people, counseling people, and so on. So INFJ would make good coach because harmonizing function makes persons or people see things differently. They have this because they use it for seeing, which is really introverted intuition. And introverted intuition works like this: you have ideas, thoughts, and concept. So what happens is that when they see an object, it elicits ideas, thoughts, and concept. They see a structural pattern, a team, and a grand team. So introverted intuition is not the most easiest thing to explain, and so that's why I would say think of it as what does action mean, what does it symbolically mean. So, but what happens is that when they have ideas, thoughts, and concept rolling, they have an object that elicits a thought, idea. You know, what happens is that they see relationship between it, and they shift the view of something. You know, INFJs or people that use foreseeing in general, INTJs as well, is that they have this ability to reconcile opposing elements. So they can reconcile subjective and objectivity. Logically, it doesn't make sense to reconcile something. What is experienced as subjective is subjective. What is experienced objective is objective. But for INFJ, they can find a way of reconciling the opposite, and they have this a good example of how INFJ might think. If you see the movie Avatar, and you have the wise old girl there, and what happens? She has this vision. Everyone goes to her for her vision, her understanding, her knowledge, and that's sort of what INFJ is inside. But what happens if you look at the Avatar movie, their nature, everything is intercorrelated. Everything is once, you know. So INFJ is likely to think the whole world as intercorrelated. Everything is connected to something. And they were also likely to use words such as relative. Everything is relative. And so what happens is that's why INFJ is called the seer, because the seer creates a future vision and image of the world, and they can have a sense of knowing where the future direction is going. And they use people to gain to obtain their goal, which is harmonizing. And they use experience as less conscious function. And what it means by that is experiencing is about seeing the present, the table, the chair around you, and so on. And it's also about experiencing. So experiencing is something an INFJ may neglect, and actually it takes quite a lot of energy of them to experience the moment for what it is. Just experience the moment without reading any thoughts behind to it. And INFJ can find that very difficult. They will, and not only that, if they use experiencing, what happens is that they often have all or nothing experience. So what it means by that, they might, when they're stressed, they might experience sensing. So they might start overeating, overindulging in sensual pleasure when they are stressed, and it has to do with the conscious energy shifts towards from foreseeing goes into the experiencing mode. And so they might experience this in a sense as all or nothing. And so there are also the people, you know, I've typed once an INFJ, and I remember he used to lose his key, you know, when he was gonna open the door, sometimes he gets so lost in his thought that the key dropped, and it has to do with foreseeing is an introverted function. They are like they have their head in the clouds. You know, they sometimes they're just not present. When you talk to them, they are not just present. And not only that, their introverted intuition is very hidden. That's why it has this mysticism um, to it. It's because their introverted intuition is such complex, is such difficult to understand, and when they have an idea of something, it often has often not a quick process. Like, you know, when they have idea of something, they might have taken days, hours to sort of an inside surface, and when they have this insight, they might not necessarily know where this came from or how it came about, but often this insight, because it's so weird from most what people have this normal conversation day to day, they might not share this, and that's very important when you're talking to INFJ. It's very important to give them the open space to share the insight, because their insight is really like diamonds. They are so rare, and they're so rare, and often it has taken them so much time unconsciously to generate this idea, this something, and so INFJs, I think, is special in that way with their introverted intuition, that they create these ideas which is unlike any others, because introverted intuition, like I said, is a very complex. It's about taking information and synthesizing it, putting it together, and it becomes this this grand theme of something, and it's difficult to explain how perhaps it came to the conclusion and so on. But it's really interesting. And they use analyzing process. Analyzing process, it means that they can they might use logic sometimes to reach their goals, but it's more like a child, you know, playing with logic. It takes energy for them to use introverted thinking. For me, I have analyzing as my first. So introverted thinking, as while I'm talking to you, you see I go in my head, and so because I'm using analyzing, it's my dominant function. So you can already see me, I'm using an introverted function. But what happens is that if you see this, the brainstorming, valuing, planning, and recalling is their less conscious function. Then what happens is that I have to see how much time I have used now, because otherwise it's gonna be too long. Wow. Okay, I'm just gonna talk 2 more minutes about INFJ. Brainstorming is an INTP thing, an ENTP. For example, for me, brainstorming comes very natural because I have brainstorming in my second. And when someone wants to brainstorm, for me, it's a boom, 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 boom. I can come with, literally, I can brainstorm hundreds of the ideas like that. And it has to do with my second function. I have most conscious awareness to it. But for INFJ and INTJ and both those two, for example, the brainstorming doesn't come natural. You have to give them more time to brainstorm, come up with many ideas, and it goes. Why is that? Because it goes against their harmonizing function. A harmonizing function is coming with one special idea, that one idea, and that takes time to process, accumulate, and so on. But if they're gonna engage, for them to be able to engage the first function, they cannot do brainstorming. That's why they sometimes oppose brainstorming. They go against brainstorming. So it's not that they don't want to come with many ideas. It's because they are often operating from this point of view. But what happens if you have a group of people who want to brainstorm? You really have to give INFJ time. Sometimes even a day, and sometimes hours, sometimes minutes, and it depends. But it takes more energy for them, and sometimes they actually avoid it, and even sometimes it elicits some. They can be even opposing to it, being no, I'm not gonna do this at all. And valuing is the opposite of harmonizing, and that's INFJ can neglect their own needs for the sake of others. So they have this sacrificing mode. because valuing is about understanding your own needs, what's important to you, what do you value. While harmonizing is about the group, it's about the group norms. And because they have less conscious to this and they're more conscious to harmonizing, the INFJ, in a sense, moral purpose is towards other people, otherness. It's not about their selves, even though they are very concerned with development. But often the development comes towards the other. They might even neglect their own development for the sake of others. So, yeah, and I think I'm gonna stop there. It's too long. I'm sorry, it's too long. So I'll talk about other personal type. INFJ is something I'm gonna visit later on, and I'm gonna make it more manageable and so on, more easier, more shorter videos. But I just wanted to give you a taste of INFJ. So thank you.